Awesome. We're live. Cool. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another YouTube Live. My name is Amber, and I am taking our live session today with Maximus in the back. Ooh, give me a wave, Maximus. Hello. He's keeping an eye on some of the activity in the comments and just anything that might happen. So, welcome, and let's get straight into it, I think. I'd love to know where you're from. Let's get the chat going. Let's get it popping off and get some chats happening. Today we're doing a brand new project. It's on relational databases, which I think is one of my favorite topics when it comes to AWS, because it feels like you're taking AWS from more than just a single cloud abstract concept to something that you can actually build, put data in, and then start to share and update and go with the world. So if you've never done anything databases related, then I think this is such an exciting project to get started with. We're going to try and do it in an hour, which I'll be very impressed if we get through it, but let's give it our best shot. So I'm here in my next work org. I think Maximus can probably pop this URL into the chat, and then you guys can see it live. But if you just go to nextwork.org, and then you can find the project here. In this one, we are going to be creating our lovely database, a relational database, which is a type of database that we can use to store data, to retrieve data, to update data. And then we're actually going to be visualizing all of the data in our database in QuickSight. And QuickSight is a really fantastic tool for visualizing data. You can use it in conjunction with a database, but also with any other data that you might have. So it's a great little tool. Now, as always with our AWS and our Nextwork projects, we have a whole bunch of different options for you to choose from, including a new scary option called No Touch, which is where you just get very, very high level instructions with no details. So if you're really looking for a challenge, then I would highly recommend the No Touch. But today we're going to go with High Touch, and we're all going to do this together. So let's have a look at what we're doing first. I think before we start, it takes us straight to logging in with our IAM user, but it is really good to just get an understanding of this architecture diagram before you get into anything. So let's just read this intro together. It says, welcome to Databases in AWS. In this beginner-friendly project, we'll create our own relational database, populate it with data, and connect it to QuickSight, which is the tool for visualizing data. The goal of this project is to set up our own relational database and visualize it using some fun charts or using AWS. All right, so if you wanted to take a pause here and think about how you may build this yourself, it's a good time to do it. But we're just going to get straight into it. Don't forget that you can always go into the Nextwork community and ask for any help or some questions. All right, logging in with your IAM user, but before we get started, it's important that you know what we're trying to do today. So in your own words, explain what you'll be doing in today's project. These are really, really good for your own understanding, so as we go through this, I'm going to be filling these out too. So in today's project, I am going to be creating a relational database, and if you don't know what that is, then stay tuned. We're going to cover it. And then visualizing my data from my database in AWS QuickSight. I think that covers it. Done. Fantastic. Off we go. Now we need to log into AWS, so please make sure that you log in here using your IAM user. If you've already logged in successfully as your IAM user, then you can skip to the next step. I have already done this actually, and I can tell because up here in my corner it says Amber IAM admin, and this is my IAM user. If you have never created an IAM user before, then please follow the instructions to create one. It's really important that you do this. It's best practice in AWS. You don't want to be using your root user because that has all sorts of complications and issues when it comes to actually using AWS and then getting into trouble with permissions and just not being able to track all of the actions of the root user. So if the root user does something wrong, then you can't work out what's happened. And it's just like the Wild West if you're using your root user. So we always say no to the root user and we say yes to IAM because IAM is our friend. And that's what we want to be using in today's project too. So if you haven't done that, please do that here. If you have got your IAM user and you're ready to go, then we're going to jump straight into step 2, which is creating our relational database. I'm pumped. I'm excited. All right, first things first, we need a relational database. How true? Once we have this, we can populate it with data and then connect it to QuickSight. Easy peasy, right? In this step, you're going to create a relational database from scratch. But first of all, what is a relational database and how is it different from a normal database? Well, a relational database is really easy to think about because it's in the name. It may sound obvious, but a relational database is a way of structuring data so that it relates to each other. And this is not complicated. It's almost exactly like an Excel spreadsheet. An Excel spreadsheet has columns and it has rows, and this means that data is related because somewhere in each cell it's related to a value going across and a value going down. So there's always relationships with the data with each other. So you might have, for example, a bunch of different names or people and then a bunch of different cities that they live in. That is a relational database because the name is related to the city. So a relational database doesn't have to be very complicated. It can be very, very simple. It purely means that the data is related to each other. Now, the other type of database that you can get is the opposite. It's literally called a no relational database, a non-relational database. And this database is what it sounds like. There's no relations to any of the data. And this kind of means that all of the data is just hanging out in kind of like in all these different spaces. They're not connected in like a beautiful table format like they are in a relational database. They're much more scattered. They're much more free-flowing. It has great advantages because the data can handle more, but it's not as organized in a way. So there's time and place for both, but in this project we're using our relational database. Now, when we're using a relational database, we use a query language, which is how we can actually get data out of the database. It's called SQL, which stands for Structured Query Language. Again, structured because it's relational. Remember, relational is very structured. All right? It's a way of structuring our data so that it's all related to each other. So it makes sense that the query language is also called the Structured Query Language, SQL. And strangely enough, there isn't really such a thing as a normal database because it's either relational or non-relational. Those are pretty much the two options that you have, unless you want to get into really bigger things like data lakes and stuff like that. But that's for another day. So in this one, what are we doing in this step? In this step, we are creating a relational database in AWS, like that. Fantastic. I think that's pretty simple. Done. Beautiful. All right, take note of the region at the top right of your AWS console. I'm just going to check up here. It's like turning on your car. We just check, like, do the lights work? Does the accelerator go? With AWS, like, what region am I in? It just should become habit. I'm in the Sydney region. That's good. I'm based in New Zealand, so hello from New Zealand if you're visiting from elsewhere. Why does our region matter? Well, today, because we're working with our relational database and with QuickSight, it means that we need to make sure they're both set up in the same region. If they're set up in different regions, it's kind of dicey. So we want to make sure they're set up in the same. If you have used QuickSight before, that's what this note here is about. If you've used QuickSight before, then make sure that the region that you're in now before you do your database is the same as your QuickSight region. You can do this by opening up QuickSight and then checking the region in there, following these instructions. I actually have used QuickSight before, but I know that when I set up QuickSight, I did it in my Sydney region. So I'm going to make sure that I use the same one here today. If you haven't set up QuickSight before, this is your first time doing any of this, then it's easier. You can just use whichever region is closest to you. All right, region's okay? Okay, check. Let's create a database. Head to the RDS console by searching for RDS. So I'm just going to copy this from my next work guide and then search for it up here. RDS stands for Relational Database Service, and it's where we can go to create all of our databases. In the left-hand navigation bar, select Databases. So that's where we're going to go. and then we're going to choose Create Database. Oh, I get excited when I create something new in AWS. It feels like the beginning of something very cool. On the Create Database page, choose Easy Create. Oh, nice. So we've got one here, Standard. Let's just have a look. Standard versus Easy. It's like a spot the difference. What changes? Get curious when you're doing this, you know. It's always good to just check it out. So Standard is where you can configure all your settings, and then Easy is where it's just automated for you. We're going with Easy today. In the configuration section, make the following changes. For engine type, choose MySQL. This one here. You might notice there's a bunch of other ones. We're going to get to those in another project. But for now, we're keeping things simple. MySQL is a classic. It's like, I don't know, like the original chocolate flavor. Like there's no, it's just the classic. It's just the classic one. For DB instance size, database instance size, choose free tier. Off we go. Whoa! What is MySQL and how is it different to SQL? This is a good question. We talked a bit about SQL, which is the structured query language, and now we're using MySQL. And you might think, well, what's the big deal? It's kind of the same thing, right? It sounds the same. Actually, they're a little different. SQL is the language that we use to query in. So, like, we have different programming languages, Java, Python, C#. SQL is another language that we can query in databases. Then we have MySQL, which is actually what we use to set up and manage our database. So SQL is the language for querying. MySQL is actually like a framework for setting up a database. And you can have lots of different frameworks for setting up relational databases, because relational databases aren't really a brand, they're just a type of database. But there's different companies that have built their own way of hosting relational databases. So MySQL, Oracle, Maria databases, Microsoft, these are all different ways of hosting a database. And they all claim to be the best, but it's good to start with MySQL. It's just the classic. Fantastic. Take a screenshot of your Create Database page. All right, screenshot here. All the way down to free tier, I think, is nice for me. And then I'm going to drag that into here. Fantastic. What is the difference between MySQL and SQL? We just talked about this, so I'm just going to copy and paste this prompt and fill it out. The difference between MySQL and SQL is SQL is a query language for extracting data from a database. MySQL is the framework for setting up a relational database. It's widely considered the classic. All right, done. Fantastic. All right, for database, instance identifier, type QuickSight database. That's down here. Whoop, off we go. Master username, admin. And here, well, it's just going to leave that as it is. And then credentials, this is where we actually set up our login details to get into our database. So in here, we can click self-managed and then type in a master password. I'm just going to type in next work because I'm a little biased, but I think it's cool. It's not a very good password, I do have to admit. I'm just literally just typing in next work. But it's easy to remember, and this is just for the practice. If you were doing this for an actual app, please make sure you use a really good password. Maybe you could even auto-generate it. But I think it's nice to have control over it for now. You don't want passwords getting in the way of things. I might also just copy and paste this and save this off screen somewhere as well, which is good. All right, very cool. Done that, looking great. Leave the rest as default settings and choose Create Database. Whoa, off we go. Create Database. Nice. Whoa, what's going on here? Suggested add-ons. Sneaky AWS, always trying to get us. All right, what is a relational database? Start your answer with a relational database is ... A relational database is a type of database where the data is structured in a way that relates to itself. It sounds a little confusing. Maybe I can explain this a bit better in my answer by saying it's kind of like an Excel spreadsheet with columns and rows to relate data. That works. Start your answer with, I created my relational database by, this was easy, by going to RDS in AWS and following the quick create? I think quick start, easy create. I might just scroll up and see what that said. Easy create, there we go. And following the easy create steps, I set up the name and login details of my database. Woohoo! Yay! We've created a new relational database. I think we can all go home, right? Not quite, because our database it's just a name and a login at the moment. There's a good question here. Where's the data that goes into our database? Databases without data is like Amber without apples. It's just sad. I eat a lot of apples, so we need to make sure that I have my apples and that our databases have their data. Otherwise, it's a hollow life for us all. But we're done with step 2, so let's continue on. Now we're connecting our RDS, which stands for Relational Database Service. I'm not too sure if we covered that at the start, but it makes sense. To MySQL Workbench. Hold up. Now we've got our relational database shell in AWS. This is what we call our RDS instance. So that's what we've just created. And that's still kind of hanging out here and creating. It does take a bit of time. So now we need to create a few tables, enter in our data, actually give this some meaning, some juice. So to do this, we're going to be using one of the most popular database tools in the world, and it's not actually part of AWS, so we do have to venture outside of AWS and go to MySQL Workbench, which is a Oracle created tool. And Oracle is like this huge company that creates all these really interesting developer tools. They're a bit old, they've been around for a long time now, but their stuff works. So, and it's very popular and widely used. So in this step, we're going to download MySQL Workbench. We're going to make our relational database instance public so that we can actually connect to it from MySQL Workbench that we downloaded. Then we're going to modify the security group that's attached to our RDS instance so that our local machine can access our RDS instance. And then we're going to connect them, which sounds like a lot to actually connect it, but this is AWS that we're talking about, and with AWS, you need to be aware of all these security things. Oh, I love this. This is basically what's happening, if you can see on my screen here, the current situation that we have. So we're going to download our MySQL Workbench, and then we're basically saying we need to connect it to our RDS instance so that we can attach some data to our database. And it's saying, knock, 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 can I come in? Like, can I connect and can we create some data together? And then the security group is like, no. I am the AWS security group and I say no. There is also, we need to allow for the RDS instance itself and the security group. So there's two different things that we needed to do here. All right, what are we doing in this step? In this step, we are connecting MySQL Workbench with our RDS instance. But that's not all, is it? To do this, we need to give access to our RDS instance and to the security group. Ooh, spelling. Security group that our RDS instance lives in. It's just so typical of AWS and sneaky that, not really sneaky, we just have to get used to it, that you have to give access to the service itself and then to the security group around it. It's like a double lock. You know, the security group, often if you give access there, it's not enough. You need to make sure that the tool itself you have access to, and that what you're trying to connect has access to that too. And then the security group. So don't forget that often security has layers in AWS. Like an onion. Onions have layers. And so does AWS security. Why are we using MySQL Workbench and not something native to AWS? Great question. AWS can actually import data from S3, which is really useful, but it can be a little chunky to set up, and it can take a little bit of time. So we like to use something like MySQL Workbench because it expands our knowledge of what we can do here. It's a very widely used tool, and it's custom made for exactly this sort of thing, which is really useful for us. I'm going to pause here and just check with Maximus. Maximus, do we have any questions in the chat?
No questions.
Cool. Awesome. Let me know. All right, let's download MySQL Workbench. We can click here. In here, you want to make sure that you select the operating system that is appropriate for you and whatever gear you have. I'm on a Mac, so I'm choosing a Mac. I'm just going to select, view all of them, and then I'm probably just going to choose, I don't know, does it tell me here? The top option. Look at that. Go next work. Choose the top option if you're not too sure. It's the latest one. And then download. Now, like any good cooking show, I have actually prepared this in advance. But if you have not, then please download it now. It might take a little bit. So while that is downloading, we're going to make our AWS database public so that we can connect it to our MySQL Workbench. So open the Amazon RDS console. In the left-hand navigation pane, choose Databases. Oh, well, I feel like we're already there. On the QuickSight database page, choose Modify. Okay, yeah, we're already here. We're going to check this. We can't click Modify yet because it's actually still doing its thing. Whoa! Did you see that? I just said it, and then it happened. Moments like that, you just start to think, I think I just might have some superpowers. And maybe scaring AWS into doing things is one of them. I'm not going to complain. Okay, scroll down to the connectivity section. Choose additional configuration. Whoa. On these pages, it can feel like there's a lot going on. Every time I come onto one of these, even though I've been using AWS for a while now, I still think, whoa, so many settings. The thing with AWS is to try to identify what is useful to you and just trust that you are going to learn the rest over time. It is really hard to start at the top and read it like a book and try and understand everything. You just want to stay in flow of what you're doing, focus on your mission, and you will work things out along the way, usually as things break. So don't worry if it all feels like there's a lot going on. It's totally normal, and just working your way through it, trying not to get too overwhelmed or distracted is definitely the best way to manage everything that's going on in AWS. All right, so we're looking for the connectivity section. Storage, instance configuration. It's like wandering around a foreign city. You're like, whoa, look at all these buildings. Okay, cool. Connectivity, additional configuration, sneaky. Oh, look at that. Public access. That sounds like something we're interested in. Public access. So RDS assigns a public IP address to your database. So now other resources outside of your virtual private cloud, which all of our resources live in automatically, a virtual private cloud. That's where everything is kind of housed automatically for us, even though we don't see it. It's already there. But now we're saying, okay, anyone can access this database. This is our port. We're just going to leave that as it is. I'm just going to double check that this is all looking good. We're a great match, Nextwork and I. Choose continue. Fantastic. Choose apply immediately and then select modify. Question?
Quick check-in from the chat. They said, can you zoom in a little bit more on the console?
Oh, of course I can. Great question. That just goes straight to my point about this being like crazy. How's that? Does that help? Maybe a little bit. There'll be a bit of a delay. Good shout. Great question. All right. I'm just going to make sure that that was looking good. Additional configuration, publicly accessible.
Yeah, that looks a lot better.
Oh. Fantastic. All right. Continue. We're going to apply this immediately and then click modify, I believe. Yeah, you don't want to click this one because otherwise you might be here for a while. Modify database. Ooh, exciting. This can take some time, so don't be concerned if it takes 5 minutes or so for modifications to come through. It's a good time for another cup of tea, or an apple, or both. Do you know what I really love? Biscuits and tea are probably the best thing to have while you are doing some AWS. I'd love to know what study snacks you like, or if you are a study snack person, maybe you're not. Let us know in the comments. What do you like to munch on while AWSing? Let's have a look. All right. Well, while we're waiting, there's actually a handy question here that we're going to answer. Why did we need to make our relational database instance public? Good question. Why did we do that? The first thing I did was make my RDS instance public because I need to connect to it from my MySQL Workbench. That's fairly straightforward. All right, current situation. Woohoo, I'm public. Fantastic. And then MySQL says, awesome. Can I come in now? And then the security group still says, no. I am security group, and I say no. So what can you do? I'll tell you what we can do. We can actually go and adjust that. This is a great thing, and the terrible thing about any sort of computer science or tech or cloud computing is that you can control everything, which means that everything is also your fault if it doesn't work. Like that kind of, it's a blessing and a curse. So modify the security instance attached to your RDS, the security group attached to your RDS instance. In Amazon RDS in your AWS console, go to the left-hand side, go to databases, choose your QuickSight database. On the QuickSight database page, let's have a look. In the connectivity and security section, so that's here, choose the VPC security groups link. Whoa, we're getting into it now. VPC security groups. Also, if you get a little scared of like jumping around too much in AWS, a little trick that I often use is I usually open things in a new tab. So I can right click and then say open a new tab. And that way I still feel like I can navigate back to my database if I need to really quickly. On security groups page, choose the security group ID. So this is interesting, right? This is the security groups that are attached to our database. So let's actually have a look. Don't be intimidated by the name, like all of these big long names, don't worry about them. What is this? Where are we? It's a great question. This is the default security group set up by AWS for our RDS instance. We don't have to do anything special for it to exist. It just appears when we create our usual relational database. And you can think of a security group as like a wall around your AWS resources. And it's controlling all of the inbound and outbound traffic to and from a resource. Not every AWS resource is going to have a security group, but most of them do. So it's good to check them out. All right, so this is our security group. It's called the default one because we didn't create it. It was here by default. And we're going to have a look at our inbound rules, which are here. So this is what traffic are we allowing inside our security group? It's like a castle or like a wall. I really enjoy networking in AWS because I think of everything like this little land and world that I can control and build. And security groups are like little fortresses or moats with gates. And you get to decide who goes in and out of the gates. Like you have like a little group of police or guards, and they're in charge. So that's what we're going to edit here. On the Edit Inbound Rules page, in the Inbound Rules section, choose Add Rule. So Edit Inbound Rules, Add Rule. For the type, choose All TCP. So this is all of our traffic. And then for source, choose My IP. Great. That looks great. In fact, it looks like I've kind of already got one there, but that's okay. Type, All TCP, source, My IP. Oh, take a screenshot. All right. I have a feeling that I've doubled these up, but that's okay. If this is your first time doing it, then yours might not be doubled up. But I think mine is because I've actually done this before. It's one of the perks of working at Nextwork. All right, done. Great. Then choose Save Rules. Interesting. Do you think it will give me an error because I have two of the same? Let's try. It did. It already exists. Cool. Then we can cancel that. I've already got it. But for you, make sure that you set it up. What did we just change and why? Every RDS instance we create has this default security group, and it controls all of the traffic, as we know, going in and out. But we need MySQL Workbench to access our relational database, which is inside the security group. So we need to change the inbound rules and say that that's okay, which is why we're saying that we're allowing traffic that's coming from our IP address. It's better than saying it's open to everyone, because then anyone else could get in, and that's a little dangerous. So now this is our situation. We made our RDS public, and then MySQL was like, woohoo, can I come in? And then our security group was like, well, actually maybe you can, but only if you've got the certain IP address, which we just added in. And then MySQL was like, yep, I am actually from this IP address. That's where I am. What a coincidence. And the security group is like, fine, I guess you can come in. And now MySQL was like, woo, we're in. So, I don't know, I think it could be a feature film, to be honest. Let me know. Who would star in it? Who's got the look of a security group? Name an actor. Let's find out. Why did we have to update our security group? Ooh. I had to update the default security group for my RDS schema because security groups are controlling and decide what traffic can access the AWS resources within it. I added my IP address as an accepted inbound rule. Great. Now we want to log into your database from MySQL Workbench, so all of this work. So we're going to verify that MySQL Workbench has downloaded successfully, and then we're going to actually go and open it. So I have it here. Whoa. Yours might have a little bit of a pop-up. Don't be alarmed. But also prepare yourself, because I feel like this interface is a little old. Unfortunately, I can't zoom in on this one. So we'll see once I get started if I can. All right, select Databases in the top menu bar, and then Manage Connections. So we're going to add a new connection. You could also just click, there's a little plus here next to the MySQL connections. All right, now we're going to select New in the bottom left, down the bottom here, and then we're going to enter the following details. For the details, we're going to paste this name for our connection, AWS QuickSight database. For the host name, we're actually going to return to our relational database for in AWS, and then we're going to find the endpoint. So I'm going to go back into my database here, and then under connectivity and security where I was. If you need to find it again, remember you can just go back to databases. You can click into here, or into your database, sorry, and then connectivity, and then here we're looking for our endpoint, which looks a bit like this. All right, then we're going to copy that and put that into our host name. So back here into our host name there. Whoa. We're going to make sure that our port is the same. So in here, here's our port, 3306. Here's our port here, 3306. It's looking good. Fantastic. Then we're going to make sure we add in our username. So our username that we created at the start, if you remember that, it's admin. And then you're going to click store and keychain where you can actually write your password. My one is next work, but enter in whatever password you set. Okay? Then we're going to choose test connection down here. Woohoo! Okay, I don't know if you can see this. It might be very, very, very small. I wish I could zoom in some more. But it says successfully made the MySQL connection, which is what we want. If you're getting an error here, then think back. Is my database publicly accessible, my relational database? Have I correctly updated my security groups? If you haven't done both those things, then you may get an error here. But this is the response that we're looking for. So, thank you, my SQL gods. We'll just say thank you there. All right, fantastic. Now we get into a really fun part where we can actually upload some data. I'm just going to take a water break. If you have any questions, pop them in the chat. Oh. It's tough work, this AWS business. Oh my goodness. Is anyone saying what snacks they like?
Yeah, we got pizza from Blaze, but sweet chili chicken.
Pizza.
Pizza from Nigeria.
Nice.
Mitchell loves Doritos, especially nacho cheese flavor.
Oh, what a classic.
Roger loves some apples.
I love apples.
Yeah.
It's so good.
They're asking if you can zoom in when you're on the MySQL.
Yeah, I know, I can't. I wish I could. Yeah, I don't think it is possible. I'm so sorry. I wish that I could zoom in. I wonder if I can make it bigger, maybe? No, I can only spread it out more. I don't think I can zoom in on this. I wonder... Yeah, it doesn't look like I can. It's a bit of a bummer. I'm so sorry. I wish that I could. We'll just have to run with this for now. Please make sure that if you have the project up, the project has a lot of screenshots, and you can zoom in on the screenshots as well and get like a much better view there. So hopefully that helps. Yeah. All right, now we're going to create our databases and load in our data. So now that we've got our MySQL Workbench connected, it's a party. Now we can start to add our tables and our data. So we're going to create a new schema, which is now that we've got our relational database within AWS, then we're connecting it with MySQL Workbench. Then we're going to create like this overarching group for our database. It's the name of our whole database, really. And then within that, we have different tables, because you can have multiple tables in one database. You can kind of think of it like in AWS when we created our relational database, that was like creating like the building. And then now we're going in and we're going to divide up all the different rooms in the building. And then we're going to add the data, which is like the interior design or like the couches and the chairs within all the rooms. All right, then we're going to populate them. So what are we doing in this step? In this step, I am going to create my overarching schema, add some tables, and then my data. Woohoo! This is my favorite part. All right, let's load some data into our relational database. Okay, it's looking good. Close any pop-ups that are still open. Uh-oh, that didn't seem right. I feel like that one was a mistake. Don't do that. And, oh, or is it here? Oh, no, it's still here. It looks good. Okay. Select your new created connection. Well, my connection isn't showing up. Let's click around a bit and see what's happening here. Whoa. Whoa. Don't be scared of clicking things. What does this do? What does this do? Oh. Okay. Sometimes I feel like you just need to click around and show that something, that you're there. You know. Opening SQL editor. Is it me or is it just the technology? You know? For my own self-confidence, I like to say it's the technology first. And then only when I'm really stuck do I say, yeah, okay, it's probably me. All right, so we've opened up our new thing here. We've got this crazy big screen. I know it's going to look very, very small. I wonder if I can zoom in now. I can't. That's so frustrating. Sorry. That's all right. If you're in the Nextwork app, then you should be able to see some good screenshots. All right. Select Schema as the tab on the top left. Whoa, schemas. There we go. And then System in here. Right-click and Create Schema. All right, Create Schema. I know this is going to be very tricky to see. All right, now I'm going to name my schema the QuickSight database. Whoa, I'm so excited. And then I'm going to select Apply. Now, this Apply button, if you're up to this step, is like really terribly designed to be down the corner over here and like really tiny. So, Apply. And then it's going to give us this really cool little pop-up, which is actually showing us what we're doing, but in SQL, the SQL language. So it says create schema, and that's the name of our schema. So if you wanted to do it by writing SQL, you could totally do that. Apply. Cool. That worked. Then I'm going to click close. All right. Now I'm going to select the tab marked Lightning Bolt Query 1 at the top of my screen. But I don't see a tab like that. You know, I see this. I can't really see what that's talking about. But luckily it does say here, can't find the Query 1 tab, no worries. Try selecting the first file icon. So that's this one here in the top bar. Oh, and now I can see the Query 1 tab. And then that's it. Honestly, it's a little strange, this whole like UI. It's a little strange. So don't be put off. Sometimes things are like that. I'm actually just going to close that one now. Okay, I'm in a query like file now, which is looking great. And then I'm going to copy and paste the following SQL into the query. So I just copy that and I'm going to paste. Now this is really cool. If you haven't used SQL before, I really wish I could zoom in. Then in here, it's basically saying, oh, maybe I can zoom in on this page a little bit. Here we go. I'll zoom in here. So this query here is saying create a new table. We're going to call it new hire. And then these are all of the different columns that I am going to put in my table. So we're going to have a key that is an integer. We're going to have a job, which has a 9-character variable there. A manager, which is an integer, has a default value of null. Hire date is a date time. Salary is a numeric value that can have 7 digits in the first, before the decimal point, and then 2 digits afterwards. Com and department, like all of these different things. So you could really customize this to be the table that you would like to see. You could really put your own data in here. Okay, cool. Now we're going to run our query script by selecting the lightning button. Pachow! Exciting. Oh, error code. Down here, can you see down here, you will either get a green check or, like I did, a red X. And it says that I got an error. No database selected. You can see it in the response. No database selected. Don't be scared by errors. Most of the time they actually tell you what to do and how to fix it. But if you get so freaked out by seeing an error and you don't read it properly, then you can completely miss the boat. So this one says, no database selected. Select the default database to use by double-clicking its name in the schema list. Ah, interesting. Double-click. All right. Run again. Ah, it worked. Great job, Amber. Sometimes I like to do this because I impress myself. And that's not hard to do. I think that's the trick. Be easily impressed by yourself. And then you'll always feel good about yourself. Wow, look, it's even got it in here. If you got an error, then this is what you can do. It's like I wrote this or something weird. All right, to see the results from our query, delete the current query and replace it with the following. Whoa, spicy. We're going to delete that, insert a new one. So this is saying select star from new hire, which is the table we just created, and star means all. So we're saying select all. Whoa! And now we've got a thing. This is cool. So these are all of the variables that we put in that query, and now they're showing up like as the columns for our table, which is epic. Yeah, we're just that good. So now we're going to put in our data, copying this one, and you can see this is how they are inserting data using SQL. This is all in SQL. And the great thing about SQL is that it's actually very easy to understand just by reading it. It doesn't take a whole lot. So now we're copying and pasting this new one in here, insert into new hire, and then it's just listing the variables off in the order that we're giving it data. So first we've got this like MP and O, and then e-name, and then it would be employee number, employee name, job, manager, hire date, salary, department, and it's compensation. All right, that's in. We're going to select this one. Woohoo! Another green tick. And then we're going to have a look. We're going to run that original select all again. And now we can see that we have data in our table. And it's so cool. Look at all that. We did that. That's fantastic. So now we're going to take a screenshot. I think it's definitely worth screenshotting this and putting that into our screenshot there. Stunning. Done. All right. And now we're going to do the same with our second table, but in this one, it's actually all in one file, all in one query file, the create and the insert. So when we run this one together, all right, then we can see that it's got the little green tick down the bottom. It's done the thing. And I'd actually challenge you here, can you write the query yourself for selecting all from, and then what was the table that we just created? It was called department. So give it a go. Don't be scared of writing things. It's a good challenge to try and move away from the copy and paste and see if you can write something yourself. Fantastic! A new table for us. Wow. All right, how did I populate my database? To populate my database, I used SQL in the MySQL Workbench app to create and populate my database tables. First, I had to connect my RDS instance to MySQL using, what do we use? The endpoint, port, username, and password. Far out. When you write it all out, we actually did quite a bit there. Awesome. All right, now we can connect RDS to QuickSight, which is going to be fantastic. So we've got some database with data in it now. Let's connect it to QuickSight so that we can see some visual charts of our data. To do that, we are going to adjust our security group that's around our relational database to allow inbound requests from QuickSight. Because we had to do it for this one, so of course we've got to do it for QuickSight as well. And then we're going to add RDS as our data source. All right, in this step, I'm going to connect my RDS instance to QuickSight. First, I need to update the security group around RDS to allow QuickSight in. Ooh. All right. Thank you so much, Workbench. We'll say goodbye to you and back to AWS. All right, back to our RDS. Open our RDS instance, which I'm still in, very handy. Under connectivity and security, we want to go back to our security groups. So you can remember we go to security and then click on our default security group here. Then we're going to open our security groups using the security group ID. Then we're going to edit our inbound rules again. And this time we're going to allow all traffic from custom and then the dots. Now I've already got that one here, but I'm just going to delete it and then we'll add it again. So add here, all traffic, custom, and then the 0000. And this means from anything. And in fact, it gives us a little message here. Rules with a source of 0.0.0, this IP address, allows all IP addresses to access your instance. We recommend setting security group rules to allow access from known IP address only. This is a very good point. But for now, we're just going to leave this as it is. And then if things work out as we like them to, then we can perhaps look at how we might improve this. So for now, we're going to save rules. And then we're going to navigate to QuickSight. You know me, I like doing things in different tabs. So I'm going to open up a new tab, navigate to QuickSight, have a drink of water. If this is your first time using QuickSight, there is a bit of a sign-up flow to go through. Just be careful that you don't accidentally sign up for any additional add-ons. If they ask you about add-ons, read it carefully because sometimes they sneak in like some extra prices there. And we're not about that. We want to keep this free. All right. Make sure that we're in the right place. We were in the right region before, so I know that my QuickSight region is also Sydney as well. Now that we're in QuickSight, select data sets from the left menu. So over here, I wonder if I can zoom in again, into data sets. And then top right of the screen, select new data set. Wow, look at this. So many options. This is cool. Look, you could even get stuff from GitHub or Jira. Wow, Google BigQuery. Very cool. Or Salesforce or RDS, which we use. So we're going to select RDS. Then we're going to enter a data source name, which for us is our RDS public database. Then we're going to select an instance ID, which, whoa, how did it know? It just knows. That's very cool. Our connection type is our public network. We're going to enter in our database name. We're going to enter in the username, which was admin, and then the password, which mine was Nextwork. And please make sure, it is really critical that your database name matches exactly the name of your database. And if it is wrong by any measure, then it's not going to like it at all. But we can check by selecting validate connection. And it got a green check straight away. We can actually test this. Let's go database X and then validate connection. Yeah, didn't like it. Didn't like it. So you've got to make sure that you actually do the right one. Right? It needs to match exactly. Fantastic. Well, that was easy. Let's answer this validation here. To connect my RDS instance to QuickSight, I made my security group around my RDS instance allow traffic from any IP address. so that QuickSight can connect easily. Then done. Yay! We might think, perfect solution. We can connect our RDS to our QuickSight. The data source is here. It's validated. It's ready to go. It seems like all good. But there's kind of something wrong with this. And you probably picked it up before. The solution kind of sucks because our RDS instance is available to anyone, publicly available. That's what the 0.0.0.01 was doing. It's really bad because it means that anyone can access us, including hackers or anyone malicious, like this cool little comic here, where they're saying, hey, security group, can I come in? And security group's like, well, what's your IP address? And then they're like, oh, actually, no, never mind, you can come in. Because we don't care. Anyone can come in. And then the hacker has this really scary smile. So we do not want that to happen. We can do better. We can do better. So let's update this. This solution is risky because anyone can access our RDS instance, not just QuickSight. Right? This is bad because the person might be bad. And data is important to keep private. All right? So if you have any ideas of how we might actually secure this, I think that we should probably change the inbound rules on our security group to allow only QuickSight in. I think that would be a good place to start, I would say. All right, let's go give it a go. Secure QuickSight. Oh, we can put QuickSight in a security group and then our RDS in a security group, and then we can let our RDS security accept requests from our QuickSight security group only. So we're just making sure it's a really tight connection. So in this one, we're going to create a new security group for QuickSight and then attach QuickSight to our new security group. That seems pretty simple. Create a security group for QuickSight and make sure QuickSight is in it. Then it can be secure. Then we can create a secure connection between RDS and QuickSight. Stunning. Done. All right, let's do this. We're going back to AWS. We're going to search for security groups. I'm going to do this in this one. Security groups. I feel like we're on a mission. We're on a mission now. Do you think we can do the rest of the project in 2 minutes? Probably not. Whoa, what's going on? Security groups. Maybe I'm already there. I am. I'm already here. Create security group. For security group name, enter this one. Whoa. Security group name. For description, enter this one. Security group that contains QuickSight. That seems legit. For the default VPC, we're just going to use our usual default one. We're not going to create our own one today, although if you wanted to, you totally could. That's totally fine. We're going to leave the inbound and outbound rules as they are, but we want to make sure that when we click create, whoa, it already exists. This could be a problem. I already have one in here. Security group 1. For you, you don't need to do that. Please just go with what you already have. Take note of your new security group ID, which is this one here, and copy and paste it somewhere safe. We're going to need this later on. All right, I will. I'm going to open up a new text edit and copy it in there. Great. Awesome work. We have an empty QuickSight security group living in the same VPC as our RDS instance. So it's looking a little bit something like this. So first I made a new security group so that my QuickSight will be secure Done. Now we need to actually put our QuickSight into that security group. So we're going to go into our QuickSight. I'm just going to cancel this because that connection sucks. It's too open, too public. We're going to click on the profile. Whoa, funky. We're going to select Manage QuickSight. We're going to go Manage VPC Connections. Wow, in the back end. In the back of QuickSight. Haha. Look, I've been doing this a while. Then we are going to add a VPC connection. We're going to enter in our name here. We're going to choose our ID, which is the default one, unless you created a new one yourself. We're going to choose an execution role, which for me I'm going to choose the service role V0. This is the role that we're going to actually say, all right, this role here has the permissions to execute all of this. So it's quite an important decision. Then we're going to select all of the default things in here. Oh, I have a couple of different ones. That's okay. All right. And then we are going to, for security group IDs, select the same ID as your QuickSight security group that you had before. This is where you want to go back and to make sure that you take the one that you copied and pasted. Because if you're like me, you have a whole bunch of different security groups. Great. That's our empty one. And then we're going to take a screenshot of this. Add that to our page here. Done. And then click Add to confirm. Cool. My one worked just fine, but I know why. If this is your first time doing it, you are probably going to get an error, and maybe you can pause it for a second and think about why that might be. If you guess that it's because of the role you chose to execute this, then you would be 100% right. The error that you will get, as always, is going to help you and tell you where you need to go. So you can have a look in here. The role provided is unauthorized to perform the required actions, and this is because maybe it doesn't actually have the permissions that it needs to actually execute this. But no problem, this is actually something that we can solve very easily by updating that role. So if we open up a new tab, I'm going to open up a new AWS tab in here, and then go into IAM, and we're going to look for that role that we used. So if you can remember the role, it's the AWS service role. So we'll go into roles in here. We're going to search for the service role. And in here you can actually start to edit the policy and give it the right permissions that you need. So we can go add permissions. We can say attach policies. Or create inline, probably create inline. Go to JSON. Oops, JSON in here. And then in here we can copy and paste in our new value in here like this. This is going to make sure that we have access to describe VPCs, create the networks, create this connection that we want to, so that we can actually put our QuickSight service within our new security group, which lives within our new VPC. So in order to do that, we need a whole bunch of different permissions. How did I know what policies to put in here? It's a really, really great question. If you are very experienced with AWS, then you can absolutely start to get the hang of these and write them out just because you know them. But if you're brand new, I would really highly recommend using a bit of ChatGPT. And you can actually talk to ChatGPT and ask it to recommend what policies you can use, and then you can put those in there. Just make sure that you read through any answers that it gives you, because sometimes it might over-give permissions when you don't need them all. But it's a great place to start if you're learning. Then you want to select next, confirm your policy, and then come back into QuickSight and give it another go. And once you have successfully done that, then you'll get to a page like this where it has been created and it's looking fantastic. All right. Now my problem is that I've got a whole bunch here and I'm not too sure which one it is, but that's okay. All right, that's looking good. How did we secure or connect our security group to QuickSight? Next, I connected my new security group to QuickSight by updating my, by creating a connection to QuickSight and my VPC, and then my security group. I had to update my IAM role that was used to do this. Cool, done. All right, I'm going to pause for a second there and turn off the heater in here because it's a bajillion degrees. Maximus has got it for me. Thank you so much. Fantastic. Woo! All right, secure RDS. So now that our QuickSight service is safely in our own security group, let's do the same for RDS and see what we can do. In this step, we're going to make RDS private instead of publicly accessible. We're going to put it in its own security group, and then we're going to give QuickSight the QuickSight security group access to our RDS security group so they can actually talk together and be happy chappies. So first we're going to create a new security group for RDS. Then we're going to put our RDS instance in that security group. Then we're going to allow connections between RDS and QuickSight. Done. Off we go. Any questions from the chat?
No, there's one from Rachel that says, I just thought about this since my QuickSight free trial ran out. This project is going to potentially charge me.
It shouldn't charge you too much. You can still use it as long as you delete everything straight away. You should be fine. And I think you can also create a new trial with QuickSight if you wanted to. All right, let's make our database no longer publicly accessible. So if you can remember how we did that, we went back into our relational database. We're going to choose our QuickSight databases, database, QuickSight, and then we select modify. And then we're just going to do the reverse of what we did before. Scroll down through all these settings until you get to connectivity and make it not publicly accessible. Then we're going to say continue, apply immediately, and modify. So now that our database is not publicly accessible, we need to actually put it in a security group that's going to do all those things for us. So we're going to go back into our security groups. We're going to create a new security group. We're going to call this one, at the top. I'm going to call this one RDS Security Group 1 because I have quite a few. It's a security group that contains our RDS instance. We'll put in it in our default VPC. And then we're going to allow some inbound rules so that QuickSight can actually get into this. So in here, we're going to add a rule. We're going to add it from MySQL. Oh, apologies, this one, yes, no, it is MySQL. Then we are going to go custom, and then we're going to put in the ID of our QuickSight security group, which is in the scroll down here. We're going to take a screenshot of this for our documentation. And it goes. Stunning. And then create security group. How did you secure your RDS instance? It's getting, we're getting smooth. We're getting good at this. To secure my RDS instance, I made it not publicly accessible. And then created a new security group for my RDS instance. Really cool. But I feel like I haven't actually attached my security group to anything. It's just floating there with nothing inside it. So we need to go back to our RDS instance and actually make sure that we add it to the security group. So we're going to select our security RDS instance, select modify, and then we're going to make sure that it's actually attached to the security group that we just created. So I'm scrolling down, and if you want, you can try and find this without looking at the instructions, if you would like. So in here, you can see that there's a security group section. And I'm just going to add my new security group, RDS, security group 1, and then remove my default one. And then save my settings here. Continue, apply immediately, modify. Easy as that. Now our RDS instance is in its own security group. We've given it access. Our QuickSight is in its own security group. I feel like we've got everything that we need here to actually make this work. How did you give QuickSight access? I made sure that my RDS instance could be accessed by QuickSight by creating the correct inbound rules that allowed access or querying of my RDS instance from my QuickSight security group. How good! I love it. All right, now we can finally reconnect our RDS with QuickSight. So back into QuickSight we go. We're going to create a new connection and then choose the table that we want to actually query. So create a new data set. Create a new data set and get creating. I can probably write that a bit better. Create a new data set in QuickSight that connects to our RDS instance and get creating. Cool. So connect back to QuickSight. See if you can do this without the instructions. We want to go back to our QuickSight homepage. I just did that by clicking on the logo in the top left. Data sets, we're going to try it again. New data set, RDS. We're going to give it a name, copying it from here. It's no longer our public one. See, now we can actually choose a VPC connection. This is going to be a bit of luck of the draw because you can see I've got 3 called the same thing here. Do we start at the top or from the bottom? I'm going to start from the bottom. It's a bit of a lucky pick. Database name. Here we go. Admin. Hopefully you don't have 3 called exactly the same thing, but it's also a good lesson in naming. It's a good idea to name these. Let's see.
Roger asked if we could talk more about what is the default regarding the instances and its access and concerns we should have.
Great question. The default regarding the instances?
Yeah. I'll ask if Roger can expand a bit more.
So anything that's created default in AWS is like AWS trying to give us a hand. You know, they're saying, hey, instead of setting this all up from scratch yourself, we're going to actually create this default one for you. And then you can go ahead and use that. This is helpful, but not the best for security because often the default might be wrong. The default might not have the security setup that we actually need. So it's a great place to start, but you need to be a little cautious of using the default for everything because it's the default. It's not customized exactly how you want. There might be things you want to add. It might give more access than what you need. And just blindly using whatever the default is not always the best way to ensure security. So it's AWS trying to be helpful, which we really appreciate, but there's always things that we need to be aware of ourselves. All right, mine is having a little weird moment here, so I'm just going to work my way through these other VPCs and see if I can find out which one is going to work. Hopefully yours works. First time. This might be my one being a bit weird. It may also be my availability zones when I actually set up my VPC connection in QuickSight, because I noticed that I had a few there and I may have selected the wrong ones. But that's okay. I don't think this one's going to work either. So then I'm going to choose this one for my next one. I find that if it works straight away. If it takes a long time to load, often that means that it's not going to work.
Virtual is saying, this project is diving deeper on more advanced setups with security groups. I love it.
Oh, thank you so much. It's good. I think that the more you do, the more you start to realize, Mitchell, how important security groups are. It's just kind of like an important part of any AWS build that you do. Woohoo! I got it. Third time's a charm. If that didn't work, that would have sucked. But it would have been the first time. Nice. A secure connection. Yeah, screenshot this. Great. Let's go. Cool. Now we can create our data source and we can feel happy with this because it's actually secure. And look, it got our data. I think this is so cool. This is data that we created with the MySQL Workbench, and now it's actually here in front of us. So we can choose which table we want to do. And you can, I would really recommend that you actually do this project a couple of times, but use your own tables, use your own data, get creative with it and see what you can do, see what you can build here. I think that it's a great one to start doing something exciting. We're going to go with new hire and select. All right, we're going to make sure we change this one to directly query your data. All right, and then visualize. So change it from import to Spice, go to directly query your data, and then visualize. Woohoo! All right, cancel that. We do not want to do any like crazy cool thing here. Then we're going to answer this question. This data source is different from my initial data source because it is secure. Yay! No, we're using security groups to access our data in a much more secure way rather than the defaults or things just being public. Done. Now we can make some charts. So this one is really free reign and up to you. We'll follow the next work guide to get started, but then please do add any other ones that you would like. So select the vertical bar graph from the left-hand side. I think that's this one. Select this one. Drag jobs into the x-axis. So see here on these fields, these are the ones that you added in your MySQL Workbench. This was all you. So cool. So we're going to drag jobs onto the x-axis. Oh, nice. Then we're going to drag salary onto the value measure. And now you can see the sum of the salary by jobs. From here, I think that you can continue to add any other charts that you like. It's the last little bit. So go nuts, do whatever you'd like to do, add your charts, create a dashboard that you're really proud of. You could even, perhaps, if you wanted an extra challenge, go back and see if you can add another table using MySQL Workbench and then get it to come through in here again. I think that would be so cool. A little extra for experts if you're feeling up for it. I'm just going to leave this as we are because we need to wrap this one up, but I'm going to take a screenshot of what I have created here, add it into my next work, done, and then we've completed the whole project from start to finish. So congratulations for following up to here. I hope that you've really enjoyed it. Please do make sure that you delete your resources afterwards. You can also make sure that you've answered all of the validations before you delete them by going through and making sure that all the tasks are marked as done. just in case you missed a screenshot or something like that and you want to go back and add it. But mine is looking mighty fine. So at this point I can go ahead, delete all my resources. It's a good idea to try and do it without following the instructions so that you can really solidify in your mind, what did I do? Remember, we've got databases, we've got security groups, we've got QuickSight, we've got IAM. So you want to make sure you go through all of those, delete everything that is relevant there. And we've got some steps in next work if you want the guide on what to delete. And then share your work. You can share it on LinkedIn. The documentation is automatically generated for you. If you just scroll right down to the bottom of the page, then you can summarize your learnings here. What is Amazon RDS and why is it useful? RDS is the Relational Database Scheme Service in AWS. It's useful for containing and creating databases that have related data. How did you use it? Today I used RDS to create a relational database that I populated using MySQL Workbench. I then visualized my data using QuickSight. What is one thing you didn't expect? How much security group action there was in here. Action there was. They matter a lot, turns out. How much time does this project take you? It took me, start to finish, about an hour and a half. 1.5 hours, I would say, or almost at 1.5 hours, which is pretty good. I think if I was really sitting down and not chatting so much, I could probably get through this in an hour. Fantastic. And right at the bottom, we can go mission accomplished and then view our documentation and download that, share it on LinkedIn. Woohoo. Off we go. And here it is. Here's our database and all of our work. It looks stunning. Stunning, stunning, stunning. Wow. It's cool to look back on it and see everything that you've done. It's very, very impressive. Aren't we great? There you go. Inception. Fantastic. Thank you all for coming. I hope that you enjoyed this project. There is another Epic Databases project on the way. That one we're actually going to connect to a web app. And then we can populate our database through a web app. So this is really exciting because it means that we're taking it from just something that a developer would do with MySQL Workbench to actually, what if this was an app? How would you connect a database to a working app and then take in user data from a customer? That's for next time. Stay tuned. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful day, and we will see you in the next one. Bye for now.